Okay, so tonight we are going to go over the rhetorical situation for our Unit 2 paper. So this is going to take you through kind of like the major parts of the paper that you need to take into consideration as you're writing this and researching for it. So hopefully you find this helpful. Does anyone have any questions about Unit 2 before we get started?
I have a question about it. Well, I don't know if it's more of a personal, like just my paper thing. I'm finding trouble finding like my exact audience because I feel like there's two. There's one that has the problem, that actually owns the problem, and then there's the audience that has like the issue with the problem, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So how to choose which one?
So basically, this is going to be based off of what your solution is, most likely, because you want to choose an audience that has the power to make the change that you're seeking. So depending on what your solution is asking your audience to do, choose the audience that could best make that happen. So for example, if you're wanting them to like boycott a certain product because they're being unethical or something like that, you're probably going to talk to consumers, right? Something like that.
So if it is consumers, does it have to be like, if it's consumer specific to a product, does it have to be like a location, or is it specific enough because it's the product that we're talking about?
Like I would just do it to, like Idaho residents or something like that.
Okay.
Because that way it's easier to reach that audience, right? Like it's harder to get your message out to everyone compared to just people in Idaho or just people in the Treasure Valley, something like that.
Okay. Okay. That's helpful.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. Any other questions with that?
I have a similar one where I'm doing mine on book censorship, and so would mine just be like people who check out books from libraries or something like that?
Right. Again, it depends on what you're asking them to do for a solution. So like, again, it would depend on what your solution is. Like, are you asking them to like support books that have been censored, or like, what are you asking them to do to help fix the problem?
This is kind of fighting against book censorship. So
right.
One of the solutions I keep coming across is like reading banned books. So would I just like reach out to library goers and encourage them to like read banned books or something like that?
Yeah, like to call them to action, like say, hey, everyone go on to Amazon, buy this book and read it, give it support because it's been banned, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. You'd be calling people to action. You could definitely call, people who would normally go to the library or whatever. Again, it's just whoever has the power to do it. Like obviously not everyone has the power to do that. Like my 2-year-old can't go to and buy a book, right? So narrow it down to a specific group of people.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? And I'm going to kind of cover this today too. If you want to follow, I will share my screen, but I also want to let you know that you will have access. This is a PowerPoint that you have as a reading next week, but I want to go through it with you guys as well. So this PowerPoint, again, covers the rhetorical situation. Let me go ahead and screen share with you guys. Okay. So okay, so in order to best understand what we are writing and who we're writing for, and to develop our paper, you really need to understand what the rhetorical situation is. Okay. Let me go. There we go. Okay, so again, gain an understanding of your rhetorical situation so that you can best craft your message for them, right? That way you can meet their needs and really get the message that you want across. Okay, there are different parts of the rhetorical situation. There's the text. For example, for this paper, what is the text? How are we communicating? What form of communication are we using? Anyone?
Like written? Is that what you're?
Yeah, it's written
Okay.
communication.
Okay.
Yes, we are using written communication, right, in the form of an essay, right? The author, this is our role that we're playing. Okay, for this paper, you are not writing from the role of a student, right? You're taking on a specific role for your paper. And again, I'll get further into this as we continue. Your audience, that's the person who's receiving the information. You are going to choose a very specific audience, hopefully someone that can, again, make the changes that you are seeking. Your purpose for this paper is to prove, there's two purposes. One, to prove that a problem exists, and two, to provide a solution for that problem. Okay, and the setting, time, place, environment at the moment, right? Again, you just want to think about, is this a problem that actually needs to be fixed right now? Is it something that has already been fixed, right? You have to think about that. We call that kind of kairos, right? Knowing that it's timely. For example, when I was in California, right, marijuana is legal there. Students would try to write papers trying to convince people to legalize marijuana. That's not timely, right? It already is legal. It's already been fixed. So think about, is this a problem that truly needs to be fixed? Is it truly impacting people right now? Okay.
Could I ask a question about the solution?
Sure.
So the problem is like fact-based, but can the solution be something that you come up with that might not be, like I can't find like facts to back it up on?
You basically, what you're going to do for your solution is you're going to make a plan to help fix the problem, right? Like your solution should cover several pages, because you're going to have a pretty detailed plan about what needs to happen in order to fix the problem. And at least somewhere in there, you should have some sort of evidence that says like doing this thing will help fix the problem.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions about the elements of a rhetorical situation?
But it doesn't have to have sources to back up the solution.
You do need evidence, so you should have a source to back up what you're saying.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be for the whole entire solution, but at least a piece of it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so let's analyze our rhetorical situation, specifically our problem, our role, and our audience for this paper. Okay, when you think about your problem, I know when I was reading the topic proposals, a lot of people weren't stating this as a problem. They're just trying to argue one side or the other. That's not the purpose of this paper. You are proving that a problem exists. So it should be stated as a claim, like, you know, such and such is a problem. Okay. You must be able to prove that it is a problem with credible evidence. Okay. I've had several situations where students think that a problem exists, but once you do research, maybe that problem isn't necessarily a problem because they can't find the evidence to back it up. Okay, any claim that you make, you need to be able to back it up with evidence. Okay. It must, at a minimum, affect you and others you don't know, right? So it's not going to be just a problem that you have, but other people need to have this problem as well. And it must somehow impact quality of life, affect the local economy, or violate human rights. It must be localized, limited geographically, or to a specific group of people. And for this, you can usually localize either your problem or solution. For example, if you're talking about a problem that is like nationwide, you can zoom in to Idaho. You don't necessarily need to tell us about Idaho, or You do, because you need to provide a solution for Idaho specifically, right? You can zoom in that way for your solution, or you can focus the problem specifically on Idaho. For example, opioid addiction is a problem everywhere, but you can give us the numbers for Idaho and how it's affecting Idaho. Okay, so make sure you're zooming in here. Don't try to solve the problem for everyone. Solve it for a specific location or group of people. Okay, so my example problem is that the differing start times for elementary school and middle school in Kenyon County are really negatively affecting students and their working parents, both academically and financially. Okay, and my potential solution for that is that since parents typically only send elementary age students to childcare and there's not enough buses to accommodate earlier start times, we can simply just switch the start times, right? Elementary school starts earlier, middle and high school start later. Okay, is this problem stated as a claim? Yes, right? I'm saying that this is a problem. It is negatively affecting these people. Okay, can I prove that this is a problem? Does anyone think that I can prove that this is a problem, even though it says yes? Or how could I prove that this is a problem?
Like talk to parents about it being a problem for them, or?
Well, we need to have credible evidence. So
Oh,
what would show that the start times are negatively affecting students and their working parents? What could I start looking up?
You could look up studies of how that would impact students and their parents.
Right, so I can look into things like, because right now, here's the actual problem. I should probably be a little bit more specific about this. Right now in Kenyon County, elementary schools, at least in the school district that I live in, elementary schools start like close to 9 in the morning, and middle and high schoolers start at like 7:45 or something along those lines. Okay, what's the problem with elementary students starting at 9 for working parents?
well, middle and high school could get to school probably on their own, and elementary, you need to get
Exactly.
them there.
I can look up data on how many middle and high school students go to childcare. How many do you think go to childcare? Like a before or after school program?
Like 0.
Yeah, probably close to none, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, they could probably get themselves to school on time and get themselves home, right? Can elementary school students, can we trust them to stay at home by themselves for an hour? Because usually, you know, work starts around 8 for most people, right? And I can even look up the data on that. Can we trust elementary school students to get themselves to school?
No,
Probably not, right?
definitely not.
Would we want to do that? Most parents,
Definitely not.
probably not, right?
Probably get in trouble with the law if we did that.
We would probably, yes, we would. Okay, I can also look up childcare costs, right? Because that's kind of like the remedy here for working parents at the moment, right? They're like, okay, you know, there's an hour between when I start work and when my kid starts school, so I need to find some sort of childcare before school program, something along those lines. Okay, so I have already done the research on that. Does anyone know what childcare cost and availability is around here?
Well, I know availability, like you're waitlisted for most like good daycares, child cares, and then I'm not sure, I forget cost.
Right. Idaho ranks almost in dead last for cost and availability of childcare. It is almost dead last. It is so expensive for childcare, and it's very difficult to find availability. So that makes it even harder on parents, right? So again, I have all this data that I can work with to prove that this is affecting parents, right? And I can even get into students and how it's affecting their academic performance because, you know, middle and high schoolers, they have different circadian rhythms. They need more sleep. When you make them get up too early, they don't perform well, right? I could get into a bunch of different things that show that this is a problem. Okay, so can I prove that this is a problem? Absolutely, with credible evidence. Okay, I can find lots of statistics on this. Okay, does it at a minimum affect you and others you don't know? I know for sure it will affect me when I have children or when my children are in school, and I know that it affects other working parents, right? I've spoken to them. I know that it's an issue. And does it somehow impact quality of life, affect the local economy, and violate human rights? What do you think that this problem does for one of those, for any of those actually? Do you think that it affects quality of life, the local economy, or violates human rights?
I think it definitely impacts the quality of life.
Right, and I think it would even, we could even probably
And the
look at the
economy,
local
actually. Yeah.
economy, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Some parents are forced to choose between, hey, am I going to work and pay for childcare, which almost costs as much as I'm making, or should I just be a stay-at-home parent to fix that, right? And that affects the local economy. Okay, and again, quality of life. It's affecting parents financially. It's affecting students academically, right? It is impacting people. Okay, so this is definitely a problem that I can work with. It hits all of the points. Okay. Is this localized geographically or to a specific group? Yes, I've actually done both. I've localized it to Canyon County and I've localized it to a specific group of working parents and children. You don't have to do both, but for this one, it is both. Okay, it's very specific. Okay. So make sure when you are looking at your problem, you are meeting each of these criteria. Okay, state it as a claim, prove it's a problem, make sure it's affecting you and other people, right? Not just yourself. Make sure it impacts quality of life, the local economy, or violates human rights, right? That can help you determine whether it's a problem or not. And make sure that it's localized geographically or to a specific group. Okay, any questions with problem? Okay, next up we have the role. Again, you are not writing from the role of a student. You are not a student in this situation. Instead, you are writing from the point of view of a member of an advocacy group, real or imagined. You can make this group up if you want. Okay, you can research what advocacy groups there are out there, or you can make up your own. Okay, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're writing from an advocacy group that already agrees that this is an issue. Okay, that they would support the claims and solutions that you are making, right? That they would write those same things. Okay, so for example, I could say that I am Working Parents of Canyon County, WPCC. Okay, this is a made-up group, but do you think that this group of people would agree that this is an issue? Do you think working parents in Canyon County would agree with me that the start times are problematic?
Yes.
Probably, right? Okay, that's how you choose your role. Make sure that they agree with you. Okay, again, highly recommend researching different advocacy groups to see if there are any out there that you could potentially write from the role of. Again, if you can't find any, just make one up. It's not that big of a deal. Make one up that would support your group. Okay, last we have our audience. This is probably one of the most important things to take into consideration. Your audience is key. You basically craft your argument, your message, everything for your audience, right? Using rhetorical sensitivity. Okay, for your audience, you have two separate options to choose from. Okay, you can write to an organization that has the power to make the change you're proposing, right? Like we talked about earlier. Or you can write to a group of people that can be called to action to help fix the problem. So like for number one, power to make the change you're seeking. If you're asking for some sort of funding to change within the government, right? Maybe you're wanting more funding, you can write specifically to those government officials. Or if there's currently a bill out there that you can vote on, you can write to, treasure like Idaho voters and call them to action by asking them to vote on that bill. Okay, so you can go either way here, but either way, these people need to be able to help you with your solution or have the potential to help you with your solution. Okay. So an example audience, I have two separate ones here. I can write to the Nampa School District, or I can write to parents with children in school. Okay. Does the organization have the power to make the change you are proposing? Does Nampa School District have the power to switch the start times?
Yes.
Yes, they are in control of that, right? So they would be the perfect person to speak to about this. What about parents with children in school? Could I call them to action?
Yes.
Right, I could probably have round them all up and say, hey, let's go to the next school board meeting and voice our concerns. Let them know that this is a problem for us, right? And that would maybe encourage the school district to also make changes that way as well. Okay, so either one of these groups would work. Okay. But before you begin writing, you really have to consider who you are writing to. You need to consider their values. What does the Nampa School District care about? Probably they care a lot about money, right? Their budget. And they probably care a lot about student success, like test scores, right? Those are the things that they value. Whereas parents, they probably care more about the well-being of their children and being financially stable, right? Those are different values. They're similar in nature, but they're very different from each other, right? I don't think Nampa School District cares about whether parents are financially stable or not, right? They probably don't. Okay, but parents probably care about whether the students are being successful. Some parents care about more than other, but the school district for sure cares about test scores because that is how they get their money for the most part. Great. So when choosing your audience, make sure that you are playing off of those values, right? Even though my argument's the same topic for both of them, the way that I present my argument is going to change based off of who I am speaking to. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into that. Okay. As a writer, your audience is the first consideration. It determines the language you use, the sources you cite, and the approach that you will take. Okay, so for example, if I'm talking to Nampa School District, I can probably use a lot of educational jargon, like words like benchmarks, retention, matriculation, right? I know that they will understand those words. Okay, and I'll probably take a more formal approach with writing to them, right? I probably won't be really casual with my tone here. I need to come off more professional to the Nampa School District. However, when I'm writing to my parents, they probably don't know what those terms mean. Do most of you guys know what benchmarks, retention, and matriculation mean? Are those familiar terms to you?
Kind of.
You're like, maybe you might have to look them up, right? If you don't know them right away, they're not familiar terms, right? If you have to look them up, it's not a familiar term. Okay, so I'm gonna guess that most students don't know, or most parents don't know what these mean. They might have a general idea, but not really, right? So instead, I need to use language that resonates with them more. So instead of saying benchmarks, I will say reaching their goals, right? Instead of saying retention, I would say students staying in school. And matriculation, students enrolling in college, right? Going to the next class, staying in school, basically. Okay. They also might benefit more from a casual approach, right? If the language and tone is too formal, you might lose your audience this way, because this audience is going to be a lot more diverse, right? A lot of varying levels that you have to work with here. So you really want to make sure that this is digestible by most people, okay? Wider range of people, okay? You're also probably going to change what type of sources you use based off of your audience, right? Again, Nampa School District, they probably would like more sources that talk about like data on student success rates, budget costs, access to before and after school programs, right? Things like that. Those would speak to them more. On the other hand, parents are probably going to relate to sources that tell them more about the well-being of their family, studies on how sleep affects teens, cost of childcare, safety issues, things like that, right? Different types of sources that we're using here. Okay. Even Nampa School District, they're probably focused more on logos, where with parents, you can probably incorporate more pathos in there, right? Some more emotion into your writing. Where Nampa School District, they're just gonna want the dry facts, like tell us what the problem is, let's get to it, right? Time is money, okay? So think about that as well. What type of sources speak more to your audience? What kind of sources do they value more? Okay. The way you write will change depending on who your audience is, but no matter what you do, you always need to keep the three things in mind. Your tone should always be calm and reasonable. You should never be like accusing people or very hostile with people when you're having these conversations, right? It's an academic conversation is what it is. Okay. For example, I had a student a couple semesters ago who was very blameful towards their audience, basically saying, hey, you caused this issue, now you need to fix it. Why do you think that's probably a bad idea?
It's going to turn away your audience.
Right. Because I know as soon as I read something that's saying, hey, this is your fault, I'd be like, all right, putting this down, not reading this, like, okay, not cool, right? No one likes to be accused. So make sure that, again, you approach this calmly and reasonably. Okay, your language also needs to be honest, clear, and respectful, right? Again, make sure that you are taking your audience into consideration, who is in your audience, and that you're respecting them, their beliefs, their values, everything, okay? And avoid any aggressive, confrontational, or biased language and tone, right? That's why you really need to let the facts speak here. Everything should be driven with evidence, right? That helps make sure to keep out as much bias as you can. Obviously, we can't completely get rid of our bias, but if we let the research tell us what the problem is and base our claims off of that, then that means that we're probably going to have a more digestible piece, and you're not going to be blaming anyone or anything like that. You're just letting, again, the facts speak for themselves. Okay. Does that give some clarity about what we're looking for here? And how to approach this in your audience? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely clarifies the audience piece of it.
Right.
I guess I'm still unclear. I don't know. I think the hardest part for me is choosing the audience for.
And you know what? You might not
problem.
have an audience until you know what your solution is.
Okay.
So don't feel like you need to nail that down right now. do the research, see what the research says, what would be a good solution, and then think about, okay, who could help me with this? And then turn to them.
That makes sense.
Okay. And I want to make it clear too that when I say that you need to write for your audience, that doesn't mean write what you think that they want to hear. Okay. You are writing what you want to communicate, but in a way that is easily digestible for them. Okay. If you're having, it's okay to have hard conversations, but you need to present it to them in a way that, you know, again, they can understand, that they can respect, they can respond to. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I guess I'll just end with this. Next week, you will be turning in an outline of, you know, your arguments. So hopefully you've already started the research for this. If you haven't, you definitely need to get on that. Start thinking about, how am I going to prove this problem exists? Like, what evidence do I have to prove this problem? And what are some potential solutions, and what evidence do I have to show that, hey, this solution can work? And you should really be looking into what other people are doing to fix similar problems. Or you can look into, again, maybe problems that are not exactly the same, but are similar in nature, and what people have done to fix those problems. Okay. Any questions?
For sources, do we have to have an interview this time?
There's no requirement for sources other than you need to have like 5 sources, I think is what I have on the prompt, 5 sources. But
Okay.
there's no, you don't have to have any certain types. I will recommend though that you have varying types, because again, you don't want to have all the same types, because that could end up being bias.
Like, could you give an example of that?
For example, if I got all of my sources from CNN, right? That's,
I see. Yeah.
right, something like
Yeah.
that. Make sure that you are getting, you know, a research article from here, a magazine article from here, right? Make sure you're varying your sources, getting them from different places, different voices, different perspectives, things like that. And make sure that you know your whole entire problem, not just the one side that you're trying to prove. Okay, that will set you up to make sure that you are hitting on the points that you need to. Okay, anything else?
I just want to say thank you for helping.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate these Zoom meetings for sure.
No problem at all. All right, guys, thanks for coming. We won't see each other for another 2 weeks, but if you have any questions in the meantime, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or Sienna. And make sure you're scheduling with Sienna soon, sooner rather than later. Okay? All right, good night, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.